Sigmund Freud once said, "We are governed by desires we do not understand." Nowhere is this more evident than in the mysterious dance between men and women, the psychology of attraction. When we talk about conquering a woman, we often imagine confidence, charm, or strategy. But from a Freudian perspective, attraction is never just about behavior. It's about unconscious communication, the invisible dialogue happening beneath the surface of words. Freud believed that our attraction to others is rooted in what he called the unconscious drives, desires, memories, and emotions formed in early childhood that shape our adult relationships. We are drawn to people who mirror the emotional patterns we once experienced, sometimes even our unresolved conflicts. So when a man desires a woman, it is rarely random. Something in her presence awakens a forgotten image within him, an echo of warmth, validation, or even challenge that his psyche recognizes as familiar. This is the psychodynamic spark of attraction. But here's the paradox Freud revealed. What we call love is often an attempt to resolve something unfinished within ourselves. The person we desire becomes a stage where our inner conflicts play out, between the need for intimacy and the fear of rejection, between a longing to connect and the urge to remain independent. Freud called this dynamic transference, the process of projecting past emotional experiences onto someone in the present. In relationships, transference is everywhere. The woman you want is not just herself. She becomes a reflection of the emotional story you've carried since childhood. That's why some men are drawn to women who seem emotionally distant. They are unconsciously reliving the pursuit of an unavailable parent. Others are attracted to nurturing, protective women because they long for the comfort they once felt as children. To conquer a woman, therefore, is not merely to impress her, but to understand yourself, to uncover what your attraction truly represents. Because without self-awareness, desire turns into obsession, and love becomes dependency. Freud taught that true attraction must evolve beyond unconscious repetition. The goal is not to replay the past, but to transform it, to become conscious of what drives your emotions so that love becomes a choice, not a compulsion. When you begin to see attraction this way, something changes. You stop trying to control or manipulate the connection, and you start observing it. You start noticing the subtle forces at play. The way her tone stirs your need for approval. The way her absence triggers your fear of loss. The way her laughter makes you feel whole. And that awareness is power. Because the man who understands his own unconscious motives becomes far more than charming. He becomes magnetic, precisely because he is authentic. He is not chasing validation. He is offering presence. He is not seeking to conquer. He is meeting another psyche with curiosity and respect. In Freud's terms, that is when desire becomes truly human, when it evolves from primitive impulse into conscious connection. To attract a woman deeply, one must first learn to conquer the unconscious. Attraction, Freud said, is a mirror. When you meet someone who stirs your emotions, it's not only about who they are, it's about what they awaken inside you. The woman who fascinates you represents more than her beauty or her mystery. She reflects your own psychic landscape. You are drawn to her not only for what she gives, but for what she symbolizes, the parts of yourself that you want to express, understand, or reclaim. Freud's theory of Eros, the life instinct, helps explain this. Eros is the force of connection, creation, and love. It drives us to bond, to merge, to seek unity with others. But Eros is always balanced by its opposite, Thanatos, the instinct of withdrawal, resistance, and self-protection. Every romantic pursuit is, in a sense, a negotiation between these two instincts. When you are drawn to a woman, Eros pushes you forward to express affection, to connect. But if fear or insecurity rises, Thanatos pulls you back, to protect yourself, to avoid pain. Freud saw this inner conflict as the essence of human love, the struggle between desire and fear, vulnerability and control. So when a man approaches a woman with sincerity and confidence, what truly attracts her is not superficial charm. It's the balance of those inner forces. It's the calmness of someone who desires without needing to possess. It's the strength of someone who feels passion without losing his center. Because unconsciously, women sense what Freud called psychic congruence, when a person's inner world aligns with their outer behavior. If your words are confident but your energy is anxious, she feels the contradiction. But if your energy is grounded, authentic, and emotionally aware, she relaxes because the unconscious senses coherence. Freud believed that women, being deeply attuned to emotional nuance, respond most strongly to the truth beneath appearances. A woman might be impressed by status or intelligence, but she connects with a man whose presence feels emotionally real. That's why trying too hard often fails. The more you chase, the more you reveal insecurity. But when you express interest without fear, you create space for natural attraction to grow. In Freudian terms, attraction thrives when desire flows freely, not when it's blocked by guilt, fear, or oppression. Repressed desire doesn't disappear. It turns inward, creating anxiety or frustration. The key is not to suppress your longing, but to understand it, to integrate it consciously. When you can say, "Yes, I desire her, but I do not need her complete me," you've reached emotional maturity, and that maturity is irresistibly attractive because it radiates psychological freedom. Freud once wrote, "Being entirely honest with oneself is a good exercise." That honesty is a foundation of genuine attraction. When you know what you feel and why you feel it, you move beyond performance. You enter authenticity. And in the realm of love, authenticity is power. Because what awakens a woman's heart is not the perfection of your image, but the truth of your presence. Freud taught that love is never just a feeling. It is a psychological challenge. Every time we get close to someone, our unconscious begins to defend itself. It tests us, not because it wants to destroy the connection, but because it wants to protect us from old wounds. When a woman pulls away after feeling close, it is not always rejection. It might be her unconscious guarding a fragile boundary. In Freud's view, attraction activates buried emotions, often connected to the earliest experiences of attachment. When intimacy grows, the psyche remembers both the sweetness of connection and the fear of loss that once accompanied it. This is what Freud called repetition compulsion, the unconscious tendency to repeat emotional patterns, hoping to master them this time. So, a woman who was once hurt by inconsistency may unconsciously test your reliability. She withdraws, not to punish, but to observe. She wants to see if your presence can survive her silence. Freud believed these tests are not logical. They are symbolic reenactments of old pain. A mature man does not react with frustration. He responds with awareness. Instead of saying, "Why is she pulling away?" he asks, "What emotion in her am I awakening? And what part of me is being tested?" Because deep attraction always activates both pleasure and defense. Your role is not to fight or resistance, but to remain emotionally grounded, to create a safe space where her unconscious feels it can relax. In Freudian terms, this is containment, holding space with emotional tension without collapsing into neediness or control. The more calmly you handle distance, the more you prove, unconsciously, that you are safe. That's when the dynamic shifts. She feels that you are not trying to dominate her psyche. You are understanding it, and that, Freud would say, is the most seductive form of love, the kind that heals rather than conquers. Because the unconscious doesn't fall in love with words or appearances. It falls in love with familiar safety. When she senses that your presence doesn't awaken fear, but peace, her defenses soften. And in that moment, connection becomes real, not a projection, not a fantasy, but a meeting of two aware beings. Love is not about avoiding resistance. It's about understanding what it reveals. When you learn to interpret emotional withdrawal as an unconscious language instead of a rejection, you stop reacting and start connecting. And that's when attraction transcends desire. It becomes psychological trust. Freud's teachings reveal something both paradoxical and beautiful. To truly attract someone, you must risk being emotionally open. In a world where men are taught to pursue with confidence and dominance, Freud's psychology offers a deeper truth. Vulnerability is not weakness. It's the bridge to intimacy. Freud observed that human beings are often afraid of their own tenderness. We hide behind logic, humor, or charm because we fear being exposed. But repression, he said, is the root of all inner conflict. When we repress our true emotions, they find other ways to express themselves through anxiety, detachment, or inconsistency. So when you meet a woman and genuinely feel something, Freud would say, don't hide from it. Observe it. Allow yourself to feel the attraction, the curiosity, even the fear. That awareness makes you real. And being real is more attractive than perfection. A woman's unconscious recognizes authenticity immediately. She can sense the difference between a man trying to impress her and a man genuinely connecting with his emotions. Freud's concept of sublimation, the transformation of raw desire into higher expression, explains this. When you express desire not as conquest but as admiration, when your energy carries respect and presence, desire becomes artful rather than impulsive. Vulnerability does not mean confessing everything or appearing fragile. It means being emotionally congruent. Your internal feelings align with your external behavior. When you express interest, it feels clean, grounded, and honest. There's no hidden motive, no pretense. And that's precisely what disarms the defenses of the female psyche. Freud once wrote, "Out of your vulnerabilities will come your strength." That sentence holds the key to authentic attraction. Because when you're no longer afraid to show emotion, you radiate psychological strength, the kind that makes a woman feel safe enough to be herself. In this sense, conquest is not about seduction. It's about mutual revelation. The more self-aware you are, the more your energy communicates honesty. And in Freud's understanding of human love, honesty is the deepest form of desire. When you stop performing and start connecting, you break the unconscious pattern of projection. You stop seeking a mother, a savior, or a fantasy, and begin to meet a real woman, soul to soul. Freud believed that love, to be healthy, must coexist with individuality. He observed that many relationships fail not because of lack of attraction, but because people become psychologically fused, dependent on each other for validation, identity, and stability. From a Freudian perspective, a man becomes truly attractive not when he seeks to be loved, but when he embodies psychic independence. This independence is not cold detachment. It is a deep inner calm that communicates, I am whole within myself. When you are emotionally centered, your presence carries a quiet power. You don't chase, you don't demand, you invite. And paradoxically, that self-sufficiency is magnetic because it triggers admiration and curiosity at an unconscious level. Freud would say that this is a moment when eros, the instinct to connect, meets the ego ideal, the part of us that admires strength, wisdom, and self-control. A woman does not fall for dependency. She falls for emotional equilibrium. She feels drawn to a man who can desire without being consumed by desire, who can love without losing himself. The key lies in understanding the difference between attachment and connection. Attachment says, I need you to feel complete. Connection says, I share my completeness with you. Freud believed that the mature psyche seeks not possession, but resonance. Two individuals, strong in their own identity, meeting in balance. This is what he called the sublimation of love, the transformation of instinct into conscious affection. But how does one cultivate this inner balance? Through awareness, through recognizing when your emotions are driven by fear rather than affection, when you notice the urge to control, to demand attention, to seek reassurance. You bring light to the shadow of your insecurity. And Freud's genius insight was this. What is made conscious loses its power to control you. When you see your emotional patterns clearly, they no longer sabotage your relationships. You can desire freely, express interest without anxiety, and give without expectation. At that point, attraction becomes effortless. Because the woman feels your emotional stability not through words, but through energy. She feels that being near you doesn't threaten her freedom. It enhances it. And that, Freud would argue, is the true secret of seduction. Not dominance, but psychological containment. The ability to hold desire without letting it own you. The more independent your psyche becomes, the more your energy naturally draws others toward it. Because independence is rare, and the unconscious always seeks what it perceives as strength. As Freud wrote, the task of making sense of oneself is the true work of life. When you achieve that inner clarity, love becomes an extension of self-mastery. And the man who masters himself never has to chase affection. It finds him. In the end, Freud did not see love as a conquest. He saw it as a mirror of the soul, a path toward understanding the hidden architecture of our own minds. To love consciously, he said, is to confront the truth of who we are, our needs, our fears, and our capacity to give without losing ourselves. When you stop viewing attraction as a game and begin to see it as an exchange of unconscious truths, everything changes. You realize that every woman you meet is not a mystery to solve, but a reflection of what you are ready or not ready to face within yourself. Freud's entire theory of human connection revolved around projection, the way we unconsciously cast parts of our psyche onto others. When you admire a woman's confidence, perhaps it's your own latent strength calling out to be expressed. When you're drawn to her warmth, maybe it's your own tenderness longing to emerge. And when her distance hurts you, perhaps it's echoing the distance you've kept from your own emotions. The ultimate master of attraction, then, is self-awareness. To conquer a woman in the Freudian sense is not to win her over. It is to transcend the unconscious patterns that make you chase love as a substitute for wholeness. It's to reach the point where love is no longer a need, but choice, a conscious, sacred act of sharing your inner truth. This is what Freud meant when he said, "One day, in retrospect, the years of struggle will strike you as the most beautiful." The struggle he spoke of was not external. It was a lifelong battle between the conscious and the unconscious, between the man you appear to be and the one you are becoming. When you integrate those two selves, you radiate authenticity. And that authenticity is what every soul, consciously or not, seeks. Because attraction is ultimately the unconscious recognition of truth, one psyche recognizing another that dares to be real. So, how do you conquer a woman according to Freud? By conquering yourself. By turning your gaze inward, facing your insecurities, and allowing love to emerge as awareness rather than desire. By becoming the kind of man whose presence awakens peace rather than fear. In the Freudian sense, love is the alchemy of the psyche. It burns away illusions until only truth remains. And the moment you stop seeking to possess and start seeking to understand, you become the kind of man no woman forgets. Because your power no longer lies in what you say or do, but in the quiet depth of who you are.